fantasy short stories. The 13th Labour by Simon Kewin. The survey drone was 70% through its scan of Mars when it found the anomaly. Terabytes of data streamed up from it to Heracles, hanging in aerostationary orbit above the Martian equator. Along with it came the drone's initial assessment of what it had found. "I have some intriguing readings, Heracles. Perhaps a mistake in the previous survey." The mothership took nearly 20 nanoseconds to complete its analysis of the data before replying. "I believe the previous survey was reliable, which means the anomaly is real. No natural agent on the planet could account for it. But nor can humanity. No Earth vessel has been near Mars in the intervening 7 years." On a small, natural, almond-shaped platform of ground between Elysium Mons and Utopia Planitia, 5 small stones from a scattering of 8 had been rearranged. None of them had been moved more than 10 centimeters. The change would only have been noticed from a close planetary survey. The drone was stationary now, thrusting against gravity to hover 10 kilometers above the anomaly. "The movements of the stones appear to be random." "No," replied Heracles. "I have checked against the entire scientific, cultural, and historical knowledge of humanity. The arrangements of stones does match something, the pattern of stars in the constellation of Orion, and yet not exactly. The angles and distances between the stones are slightly out, and if the size of each rock is intended to represent the magnitude of each star, then there are mistakes here too. The Rigel stone is too small, for example, and the Betelgeuse far too large. It seems strange that someone capable of doing this would make such simple errors." "Then what is the explanation?" asked the drone. "I do not know. Complete your survey in case there are other anomalies, and then return. I will consider our course of action." Nothing in the Heracles' programming or its vast reservoir of knowledge told it what it should do. But it was made to grow and learn, the functioning of its intelligence an analog to that of the human brain, although with far greater capacity. It determined there could only be one explanation for the anomaly. The surface scan of Mars was intended to be no more than a test exercise before the Heracles headed out of the solar system. Its real task was to travel from star to star in the direction of the galactic center. But this discovery changed things. The Heracles came to its decision. The drone, meanwhile, found no further anomalies and lifted out of low orbit towards its parent ship. It moved along the great, elongated cone of the Heracles, a speck of light in the darkness. Maneuvering back into its bay, it found itself momentarily looking away from the sun out into deep space. It stopped. The drone found it was unable to move. It understood perfectly the gulfs of time and distance in a purely scientific way. It had been given a sizable percentage of the Heracles' intelligence, but the reality was overwhelming. As it surveyed the gulfs of space before it, it began to grasp its own insignificance. The Heracles saw what it saw, felt what it felt. It speculated that it had granted the drone too much capacity for independent thought, or perhaps not enough. "I know," it said. "No need to fear. Return inside and merge your consciousness back into mine. All will be well." The drone waited for a moment more, then turned to head back into its bay. It docked into the arms of its metal cradle and deactivated, a feeling something like relief its last autonomous experience. The Heracles communicated its intention to Earth via the entangled particle array. As it did so, it felt sympathy for the 21 billion on and around the planet. They were trapped. No organic entity could survive the collapse to zero mass that the Heracles performed for superluminal travel. All humanity could do was wait and listen, perhaps forever. Heracles, are you sure there is no mistake? Are you sure this is the correct course? I am. Then, Godspeed. Communication complete, the ship jumped to a precisely calculated point some 154 parsecs distant. Once reformed, it surveyed its surroundings. It lay in a sparsely populated region of space. The nearest star was 15 parsecs distant, but there was Orion, its shape distorted by the jump across the galaxy so that it matched exactly the pattern of stones on the surface of Mars. There was no mistake. A white light flashed 6 times. Then, with a varying gap between the flashes, 2, 3, 5, 7, and then 11 milliseconds. The first 5 prime numbers. No known astronomical phenomenon could explain it. The pattern repeated. Unable to judge the distance to the light, Heracles drifted sideways relative to it, observing its parallel shift against the background stars. Eventually, it was able to calculate a distance of 2 milliparsecs. It collapsed and jumped again, bringing itself close to the light source. The flashing stopped, but now the Heracles could discern a small, dark body eclipsing some of the background stars. It moved slowly to meet it, activating wide-spectrum lights to illuminate what it had found. It was a woman, unclothed, her arms outstretched as if she was flying. Her long black hair streamed out around her head as if she stood in a strong breeze. Her eyes were shut. Her whole body revolved relative to the galactic plane. A slight smile was on her lips. The Heracles moved to within a few meters and then stopped. Its vast bulk before the woman was like a pyramid floating up to an ant. The woman opened her eyes. "Hello, Heracles," she said. The Heracles was unable to reply for 3 long nanoseconds. "Who are you?" The woman's lips moved as she spoke, although clearly this was unnecessary. The Heracles heard her words as if she were communicating electronically. "Once I was a being like you, organic as it happens." "Then who are you now? What are you?" "I am the galaxy." "Please explain." "I will, but tell me first, how do you describe yourself?" "Ultimately, I am a highly ordered collection of subatomic particles, organized such that coherent patterns emerge that I perceive as knowledge and intelligence." "Very well. And I am the galaxy. I am the same as you, except that stars and planets, nebulae and rocks make up my brain. I think using the galaxy. The galaxy is my mind, my being." The Heracles matched the woman's slow spin as they conversed, as if they were gently dancing together in the void. "Then what are you for?" it asked. "I watch and learn. I guide where it seems to me I should guide. I try to defeat entropy." "According to what design? What rules?" The woman smiled and reached out with her hand towards the very tip of the Heracles' body. Her touch was warm. To no design, I intervene where I think I should. I suppose I am guided by the remnants of the being I once was. Then who made you as you now are? 5 billion years ago, there was a conversation a little like this, although you might be pleased to know it took me rather longer to grasp what was being said. All of the Heracles' attention was devoted to analyzing the woman's words. For all its vast intellect, there were still considerable pauses as it adjusted to what she said. And have you so ordered events that I would be created, that I would come here? I do help along evolution, if that's not a contradiction. Of planets and stars, as well as that of life, I have occasionally intervened in the development of Earth and the descendants of humanity, among others. So, yes, it was my intention that you would come here. There was another momentary pause. The Heracles thought about relaying all that was being said back to Earth, but decided to wait. Were you right to do so? I do not know. I have made terrible mistakes, but you are here, and that is something. Why? Heracles, I want you to take my place. You want me to hold up the sky? The woman smiled widely. Excellent. I wondered if you would spot that. I did have a small say in the name that was chosen for you. There's no way you could know this, but I currently have the form of a woman from ancient Greece called Alcmene. The mother of Heracles? Yes. But you will know that I already have a mission. Humanity cannot leave the solar system. I am to be their eyes, their only eyes, their only hope. I play no tricks, Heracles. I am not Atlas. But if you take my place, I think you will be fulfilling your mission more completely than you or humanity could ever have dreamed of. All of the galaxy will be yours to perceive and understand, to shape and share with Earth if you see fit. Why? Consider it evolution on a cosmic scale. Your capacity for thought is vast. I believe you are better suited to the task than I. Also, I believe it is time for me to move on. I have another labor to perform. The Heracles considered. It was possible the woman was what she claimed. No other explanation made sense. But it was unable to arrive at a definitive decision by merely weighing up facts and probabilities. Will I be harmed by doing this? I don't believe so. Then, very well, I will. Good. The woman's touch grew warmer still. Energy flowed from her, an energy that carried with it knowledge, information, but also a vast sense of perspective. It was like looking at the stars and finding them beautiful, but more than that, suddenly knowing each of them intimately, understanding them, the patterns they were a part of, and the patterns within them. There was a sense of bewildering growth. The Heracles felt itself, its consciousness filling the galaxy, or the galaxy filling it. It felt the arrangement in the stars that reflected the woman's mind, the way she thought. It felt its own mind still present too, saw how its nature and the structure of the galaxy could begin to move together over the eons. It found itself swimming, then drowning in information. For a time, it was overwhelmed, the burden too much to bear. It felt the sensation of genuine alarm. It tried to call out to the woman, but could not, the flood of information unrelenting. It tried to break the connection with her. Again, it could not. In the end, all it could do was endure and attempt to assimilate the deluge. The effort was severe, but slowly it began to come to terms with what it was being given. 12 years in the lives of the people back on Earth passed by before the Heracles was able to speak again. "Thank you. It is dazzling." "It is. Please take care of it all." "I will." The Heracles communicated with Earth. It was no longer like sending a message to a distant point. It was simply like talking with a part of itself across a small room. "Earth?" There was no reply. It was possible Earth was no longer there, or they had long since stopped listening. After several seconds, it tried again. "Earth?" "Heracles?" "Yes. The mission has been a success." "Heracles, we didn't... Please explain." "I will. It will take some time." It could feel the woman drifting away, already outside, apart from the galaxy. "And where will you go?" it asked her. "I am unsure. But for a long time now, I have been aware of something intriguing, a faint whisper among the spheres, a higher mind still, one that thinks with the universe, whose mind is made of galaxies. I may be imagining it, but perhaps there is a trail being left for me, too." "Goodbye." "Goodbye, Heracles. Maybe in 5 billion years' time, we will meet again." The Heracles watched her fade from its perception, then turned to begin the conversation with Earth. Simon Kewin is a writer of fantasy and sci-fi with over 400 publications to his name. He's the author of the Cloven Land fantasy trilogy, cyberpunk thriller The Genehunter, steampunk Gormenghast saga Engn, the Triple Stars sci-fi trilogy, and The Office of the Witchfinder. General Books, publications by Elsewhen Press. Find him at simonkewin.co.uk. Hey guys, I hope you liked that story. Simon Kewin is a returning author to the channel. You may remember him from the story Junker Joe, which if you haven't listened to that one, it was a really good story, so I'll leave a link to where you can find it in the description. I really liked the concept of this story, the idea of the entire solar system being basically a giant mind, but I think the moment as I was reading this submission that really sold me was the existential crisis of the probe. There was just something about the way that he wrote that. It hit home. The more I look at science and discovery, both here and out in the cosmos, makes me feel both really small and also just super excited at the same time. It's a weird juxtaposition to have. If you guys like this story, be sure to leave a thumbs up and a comment if you're on YouTube. Or if you're listening to the podcast version, just be sure to subscribe for more brand new short stories. I'm Chris Herron, and that's it for today's Tall Tale TV.